Time to review the Valaška by Sharp Blades. This is a shepherd's axe, common in Eastern Europe. It's known as Valaška in Slovak, Fokoš in Hungarian, and it goes by various names in different Polish regions. Long-handled axes similar to this have been long in use in Eastern Europe. In fact, back in the migration period, you already had similar long-handled light axes, and then in the early Middle Ages as well. This particular form here apparently is most at home in the late Middle Ages, 14th century and later. It's mainly associated with Slovak and Polish shepherds, but also Hungarian warriors. So it seems that this was primarily a tool. It was used as a walking stick. You can see how this shape would lend itself towards that. So you could, with the spike on the end, you could prod the ground and check if it's safe to step on. And there's quite a wide variety of uses you could get out of these. Chopping branches, and even something as trivial as getting yourself a high-hanging apple with this, or hooking onto various objects to pull them close. And yes, also as a weapon. And this particular one here has a problem. As you can tell, this spike doesn't want to stay on, but I'll get to that. Apparently, even nowadays, in some rural areas, occasionally you might see somebody with one of these, but they're nowadays more of a cultural heritage item, really, not used that much anymore. All right, let's look at this particular reproduction here. The head is hand-forged of 12050 and 14260 spring steel and treated with beeswax. Unfortunately, I've been unable to find much information about these steels. They seem to be of Czech origin, and it's really hard to find much about that. I've seen a few people in forums speculate that they might be similar to 5160 steel, which I couldn't confirm, no idea. If that's the case, then it should be very good steel. But otherwise, I really can't say much about the steel. What I can do is try to figure out the hardness that it's tempered to, because I have a hardness tester set here. So I'm guessing it's somewhere between 50 and 55 HRC. Let's see here, I'll find a spot. See if that marks it. Yes, it does. So it's definitely no harder than 50, apparently. Let's try the HRC 45 tester. Yeah, this does not mark it. So as far as I can tell, it must be between 45 and 50 HRC. And the handle is beech wood, which is an unusual choice. Normally for axes you see ash or hickory or oak, but apparently beech is suitable as well. Might not be quite as strong as ash or hickory, but from the tests I haven't had any problems with it. However, there's one thing that worries me a little bit, namely the taper, since it gets pretty thin towards the bottom, which is traditional, but it makes me worry a little bit about whether or not this might break with prolonged use, since there is just not that much material here. And that's where a lot of the vibration goes. In fact, that is one of the issues that I noticed with this, is I got quite a bit of hand shock right here when chopping wood at the offhand. And it makes it less comfortable than it could be. With gloves, you don't really notice it, but without it is kind of noticeable. So it does bang up the hand a little bit. Nothing major, but such vibration concentrated here, together with the fact that there's not too much material, is maybe reason for concern. So what about the performance? Well, as you can see, this is a very small axe head, and overall it's quite light. So for chopping down a tree, this is not ideal. I mean, you could do it if it's a relatively small tree, but it would take quite a bit of effort. My favorite forest axe so far comparison, you can tell that this head here is quite a bit larger, and also this is a lot thinner, and that is something that I often see on many axes. They tend to be a little too much on the thick side, and that affects how well they cut. In fact, this, I mean, it's not bad, but it could cut a lot better. If this was shaped to just a bit more of an acute angle, that would definitely help. I think it would still be strong enough, and it would definitely make it cut better than what it does. The other thing is, it does not come very sharp at all. So this definitely had an impact on the performance. You can see this is not sharp at all. I mean, yes, people often argue that axe sharp is a different thing and an axe doesn't really need to be that sharp, but I disagree. It definitely helps a lot if you have a nice sharp edge on an axe. It makes it safer for you because it makes it less likely to glance off, and it just bites more deeply, more easily, with less energy spent. That being said, considering the size and everything, it does perform pretty well. The long handle definitely helps generate power, and if the edge was a little reprofiled, this would definitely work pretty well. When seen as a weapon, you can tell that this would be very effective against hard targets, that is bone. That would do a lot of damage. In fact, I tried it on one of the zombie heads made by Zombie Go Boom, and yes, it was definitely devastating. This is where it really shines. It would not be quite as good of a weapon as something like this, a Dane axe, which has a very thin blade, so this would cut exceptionally well, and it's not as good of a tool as a more dedicated forest axe, for instance, but it's a better weapon than this, and it's a better tool than a battle axe. Plus, it's very light. So carrying this around is not a problem at all. If you were to use this as a walking stick, no problem. You can walk around with it all day. This is not a problem at all. So handles very well, carries easily, and the head seems to be very well made. Definitely like how the hammer bit is shaped at the end, and the finish is very good. Nice satin polish. Aside from the edge geometry, it's excellent work. So can't complain about that at all. Pretty tight fit. The double wedge here seems to be a bit of an afterthought. It looks to me as if they weren't quite satisfied with the first wedge and then drove in a second one. Also, I'm more used generally to seeing a wooden wedge, and this here is metal. Not sure if it makes much of a difference. It might not. What I did notice is after chopping wood with this for a while, the head did move upwards a little bit, and not a hard fix. I just took a rubber mallet and pounded it back down. Normally when that happens, you just firmly tap the bottom of the handle on a hard surface to reseat the handle, which with the spike is not really an option. But if you wanted to make sure that this really doesn't move, you could just soak it in water overnight or in oil if you don't want it to rust, and then you're good to go. As far as the spike is concerned, I'm not too satisfied with that because, for one, it just isn't secured properly. It's just glued onto it, and with hard use, that'll just come off. This would really need to be secured with a rivet, or with even just a nail. Drilling through the entire thing, inserting some kind of pin or nail, or even just a screw, whatever, and anything like that, to make sure it doesn't pop off. And as far as the shape is concerned, I have to say this is a bit of a rough job. It looks like it was rushed a little bit. Sorry if I'm a little harsh or nitpicky, but as a reviewer, it's my job to show people exactly what they get for their money, and this is just something worth pointing out. So how much would this cost you? It's currently offered for 192 US dollars, converted from 4,800 Czech krones. Would I say it's worth it? Well, it depends a little bit on where you are. In North America, since I think in North American prices, it seems a little expensive. However, you have to take into consideration that in most parts of Europe, the wage levels are generally higher, and so are the prices. So to somebody in Scandinavia, this would seem pretty cheap, whereas to someone in the US or Canada, this is kind of on the pricey side, especially if you add the shipping cost. For the price, I would really like to see a better finish on the spike here. This is a little rough for that price range. And also the wedge doesn't look all that clean. And as said, the edge should be sharper in my opinion. That would definitely be good to see. But overall, this is quite a nice piece. It's definitely Well, it's fun to use, let's be honest about it. This thing is definitely a lot of fun. And yes, it can be used for a lot of tasks. Not quite as many as I'd like, because it is so dull. I tried finer work, whittling and stuff like that. It's just too dull. And it's too thick overall. So that limits its usability a little bit. But as far as chopping is concerned, and walking stick and all kinds of other improvised uses that you could think of, yeah, definitely. Versatility is there. And also, this is one of the few reproductions of a Valaška that I've seen. It's not the most well-known type of axe, and it's great to see this being reproduced. So for that alone, I would recommend it. If you're looking for an Eastern European shepherd's axe, then yeah, this is definitely a solid option to consider. And as a weapon, demolishing zombie skulls and all that good stuff, yeah, definitely a lot of fun. Works pretty well. I would also like to do some armor tests with this, because that seems like this would be something where this really shines. But yeah, if you're interested in it, I'm going to post the usual information, specifications, link to where you can get all of that down below in the video description. And thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful.